Rogers, what are your thoughts about farming out some of the town services to the county, such as EMS, police, dispatch, etc.?
I'm in favor of maintaining our own police department support. Also the EMS, if we can share any resources at all with the county, I would be in favor of that. But I wouldn't be in favor of turning, relying totally on the support of the county for our police support and EMS. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Deller?
Well, in case we haven't noticed, we have a real revenue problem here in town. And so I specifically cite at one of my planks here and to review town services. And frankly, I would be willing to entertain either the contracting out or the shedding of certain services either to the county or to the private sector under really three conditions. Number one, it's cost effective, and number two, the service is enhanced. So less cost, better service. And then there's an intangible. Then there's the intangible of, well, does it really make sense? Is this something we really want to do? We should not be afraid to study anything. And I've run into this in the past where people leap to the extreme. If you want to look at the police, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deller. Ms. Shinn?
I understand that these services take a great deal of resources, and there are ways for them to find other funding options as well. But farming out our services to the county will reduce the amenities that we provide our citizens. And here in town, we pay a lot of taxes, and we do not provide a lot of amenities to our townspeople. One of the things that we do provide are police officers, EMS, and firefighters to have a quick response time in town. I am not in favor of farming any of these services out to the county at this time. I think that our community is part of these services is that we are taking care of ourselves, and we have a responsibility to each other to try to do that. And I would think it would result in a reduction of care. So.
Thank you, Ms. Shinn. Ms. Ryan?
I believe as well that we should keep our services in town. I would like to know exactly how monetarily responsible it would be to farm them out. But I don't believe that if we envision this town to become more populated with permanent residents, that we should get rid of services such as these, because that's some of the things that attract people here. And if we want to bring them here, why do we want to get rid of the reasons they come? Because we are a close-knit community that has a school, that has a EMS, a fire department, a rescue squad right there. And you know, all of that in a whole is what attracts these new families and brings them into this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Roberson?
The only thing that I would say about that is obviously we do love those services that we have in town. I would like to, since we do pay taxes to the county, I would like to see if there are other avenues, not knowing any off the top of my head, but if there are other avenues that we could share with the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Deller, what are your views about residents that let their houses deteriorate? What should be the town policy?
Well, I think people obviously need to keep their property up to a standard of needs to be livable, it needs to be inhabitable. I mean, if a house is in such disrepair that it's apparent from the outside that there are issues inside and corrections need to be made to the property, then we have an inspector. We should send the inspector in there, take a look at it, determine what needs to be done, and notify the property owners. Now, if these citizens are in need, then we don't just condemn the house and push them out. I think we owe them an obligation to look after them until they get on their feet or get back into their home. But, you know, it does nobody a service to allow the citizens to live in a property that's run down and condemned. We have a responsibility to look after them and to help them.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Ms. Schick?
I think the town has an example to set. When we have property ourselves that is not being kept up with, it's a bit ridiculous to be tearing down somebody else's property. There's a procedure for identifying derelict buildings, notifying the owner and taking action, and enforcing penalties. On this, we need to follow the laws in place, but first we need to set the example of how we expect property to look in town. I'd also like to offer incentive programs to encourage buyers to derelict housing that we already have to either tear them down or renovate them.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
I believe that, obviously, part of the beautification of town should also be that its residents are required to keep their properties up to par. And, I'm not familiar with the legalities of how you go about if someone is not, but I definitely think there needs to be some sort of plan in place that requires you to keep your property up to par and livable and such. Thank you.
I would like to find out what it is that we could do to help the individuals that have gotten into that state and why their property has gotten into that disrepair. If it's something that we as a community could help with, then I would definitely be in favor of that. I think we have to have a standard of keeping our residential areas as beautiful as we possibly could keep them, and we do have regulations that we try to uphold within this community. I do understand though what Ms. Schick is saying. It's hard to tell somebody to take care of their property when we as a town have not taken care of our properties as well as we could have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
I think we have adequate ordinances on the books for following up on derelict properties. What's important, I think there should be proper notification to the property owner and allow them reasonable time to make the necessary repairs. And again, if they need resources, that they don't have the means to make the repairs, and see what kind of assistance is available to them to make those needed repairs.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Ms. Schick? Listening to various backgrounds, few have any experience working in a government capacity. Would you be willing to sacrifice your personal time to attend workshops that would cover such government topics and provide everyone with such knowledge even before taking office?
I'm not sure that question applies to me as a candidate as much, because I do feel like I have a lot of experience, and I have worked in government capacity, in municipal development, directly in this field, directly in growing a community with projects, and I was trained by the U.S. government to do that. However, with that said, knowing that I have that experience and that certification behind me, I still plan to attend the Virginia Municipal League training in January. If I'm elected, that is the first thing that I would do. I have been to the Virginia Extension Program for the Planning Commission training. I have a certification there as well. It was extremely helpful in creating a network of other ways to assist the town and of other people to get to know that are doing things in their towns and how they're doing them and doing them better. So regardless of how much experience you have, I would implore that you go to that training, and I fully would expect to give my time to be able to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Mr. Ryan?
There is no doubt that I would 100%, I'd actually enjoy going to trainings to learn more about the government part of it and the things that I don't know, because as I said in the beginning, I don't claim to know it all, and I know I don't, but I do want to. I have that want to learn, and we all as candidates have signed up, and we've decided to give our time to this town. And I think, just the fact that we've gotten on the ballot is showing that we're willing to give what we what we will, and the extra mile in order to learn or do for this town. So trainings, by all means, all day, every day.
Thank you, Mr. Ivan. Ms. Roberson?
I can't imagine wanting to go into something and not wanting to know as much about it as you possibly can. As most of you know, I've been on the school board for the last 8 years, and I have gone to a multitude of educational conferences just so I can keep up on what's going on in education. I would do the exact same thing if I was elected. I don't know enough about this, and I need to know more about it if this is what I want to do. So by all means, I would attend as many conferences, as many classes, whatever it takes to learn how to do this particular job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
Well, when I first decided to run for town council, I really thought I could bring my knowledge and experience to the town. There's going to be a fresh perspective. I came to town with no preconceived notions or axes to grind, and I thought I could really provide a good community service. I'm certainly not doing it for the money. It's going to be a good community service. I thought I could bring my knowledge and experience with my accounting background, involvement in government. I audited some of the largest defense contractors out there, going through their books and records, their proposal submissions, their incurred costs. And I really looked forward to getting into the town's financial records and see where the money was coming from and where it's going. So I look forward to serving another year to be reelected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, I guess the short answer to your question is yes. And as a matter of fact, when I was first appointed to the town council and then subsequently elected for a year, I went to a VML class in Richmond for newly elected council personnel, and I found it very useful. As a matter of fact, I still use that reference book. So to answer your question, yeah, I'm somebody who wants to keep learning for the rest of his life, so I'd go to any training deemed necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Mr. Ryder? Will you promote an agenda that reduces property taxes if elected?
Honestly, I don't know. I would have to research the ways and how we can reduce them, and if it's monetarily smart for us to do that right now. I do think that the town has to go away from continuously putting the burden on its citizens, so it's definitely something that I want to research and figure out how we can not do that. I think it kind of sounds like the answer wants to be like in January, if I get in, like that's what I'm going to do. But I don't think that's the simple answer. I do think that could be a process that may take some time. I mean, I'm not talking 20 years. I'm talking that's something that we begin as a council and myself looking into other ways to create this revenue for the town without continuously putting it on its citizens by raising these property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Roberson?
I have to agree with Mr. I in the fact that until I get to look over the departments and how monies are spent in those areas, I know it's always easier to put tax raises on personal property, and of course, without knowing where the cuts would be made or what else could be done, I wouldn't feel right making a decision on that right away. But certainly, being privy to how a budget is put together for the town and why things end up in the categories that they end up, it certainly is something that is open to discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Roberts?
When I support an agenda to reduce taxes, that's something you can't really promise. I think we have a better system now as far as developing a budget, looking at expenditures, than what it was when I first came into the town council. Again, we got to look at the revenues, where the assessments are going, where we can reduce expenses, but I can promise you that, you know, there will be a balanced budget and still maintain constituent services and actually improve on those. I'd love to see reduced taxes, and I think that's certainly a possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dillon?
Thank you. Yeah, I would, as many of you know, I opposed the 10-cent tax increase that occurred just recently. The town manager acknowledged that 6 or 8 cents tax increase was manageable. That yielded a contingency of about $30,000 to up to $123,000. That's a contingency, money set aside that they haven't identified a use for. Our contingency now, as a result of the 10-cent rate increase, has increased to about $220,000. So, would I consider, or would I be in favor of a tax reduction? Yes, but you know, you've got to look at the numbers, and it has to be, as Mr. Rogers said, a balanced budget. We're spending money this year, and unfortunately, the money we're spending, many times spending has a tail. So it doesn't just stop in the fiscal year you spend it. You create an obligation to spend money in out use. So we have to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Ms. Schick?
I think the town council just raised our personal property taxes nearly 15%, which was higher than I expected it. I really didn't expect they were going to go the whole 10 cents. But it's because we probably need it. And I think until you're on council and with the annual budget in front of you and really evaluating it, that you fully understand why we need it. There are a lot of things to pay for. I do think our priorities in 2019 need to be fiscally responsible with this tax town increase. We need to be tracking our expenses with project codes and responding in detail and action to the annual audit report. And with better money management and diversifying our income in some of these other areas, then maybe one day we can reduce taxes, but we just raised them because we need it. So we need to make sure that we are spending it responsibly.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Ms. Roberson, what ideas do you have to spur economic development in town, including attracting new businesses?
Including
Attracting new businesses.
not being a business person. That certainly is not my forte, but I would think that we could place incentives in line to get small businesses into our community. There have to be things out there that attract people here. We all came here for some reason. So I know that at one point the town council had put out, in fact, wasn't there a billboard at one point that they had put out all the attributes that we have? I think the more that we market ourselves, I think the chamber does a great job of bringing events in and getting people to see the things that we have here. So I would try and build upon that and, of course, involve as many of the people who have a horse in that race and to see what their thoughts are on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Mr. Rogers?
I think the key in attracting new businesses is growing our community so we can support new businesses. If there was any incentives to offer new businesses for coming in, they'd have to be short-term because I wouldn't want to hurt our current businesses here. Other than that, I have no real ideas how to bring them in. I think promoting the town, developing our website for the tourism, and attracting more tourists into the area to show that there is a potential to support new businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Dillon?
I think, first of all, we need to develop a clear and concise vision for the town. And then we can take a look at those properties that we have vacant. And, we don't have to sell those properties for top dollar. I mean, we could sell those properties with the understanding that whoever purchases them will put so much money in to develop that property, and we can reap the benefit of it down the road. We should be really looking at all of our properties and determining how best to build out the town. But first of all, I really think we need to come to a good understanding of what kind of town we really want to have. What's the priorities of our town? And then use our vacant properties to attract and private sector money to build those properties out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowling. Ms. Schick?
I was born in Colonial Beach small business. I grew up above Dockside, and that's an experience in itself. I came back and started my own small business. My first small business was when I was 14 years old. I started webpage design here in the school. And I did webpage design for other small businesses in Westmoreland County. I didn't make a whole lot, by the way. I wasn't very good at it. I'm better at architecture. But we have to actually be business friendly. We have to help startups become sustainable. We have to have business tax codes that make sense and provide incentives to commercial initiatives. There's a section of town code that currently is in existence which provides tax relief for several types of new businesses, and this needs to be advertised to entice entrepreneurs. There's also a business brochure written by the Economic Development Committee that outlines exactly how to start a business and where you can find funding. This should be available and advertised at Town Hall. And thirdly, we need to evaluate the business license procedures to align with how business reporting income and collecting taxes in the high season when they actually have the ability to pay it, instead of in March when their federal taxes aren't due yet and they're already stretched to make it to the end of winter.
Thank you, Ms.
I know I went over, I'm sorry.
Ms. Ryan?
I definitely think that we need an incentive system for people to start their business in town. I think too, when we build this town, if we have these events and people come in, and you know, a lot of times when people start a new business in town, it's someone from out of town that wants to come in and make this their home. And if we have these events in town that show our community comes out and there's a ton of people in the community and we have a good tourism market, then that's enticing. To see that you have a market to sell your business to is going to be what's the most enticing, honestly, in my opinion, to start your business here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Now I've got two questions specifically for two different candidates. Ms. Roberson, what conflicts of interest do you foresee since your husband is on the County Board of Supervisors? Please explain.
Did you say what conflicts of interest
Correct.
do I foresee?
Yes.
Okay. Probably more arguments between the two of us than anything else. He was on town council years ago, and I was on something at that time, I can't remember, but there are two separate entities in our household. Do we have discussions over those things? Yes, we do. Obviously, as any couple would, but we've learned how to separate the jobs that the both of us have. So, whatever may come up, if something's a conflict of interest, obviously, it would be something that would be addressed at that point. Can anybody give me an example of what it is that would be one that I can give you an answer back? Okay. I off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that would be. As a person who's on the Board of Supervisors, you simply represent the town of Colonial Beach. As a person who is on town council, you represent the entities that go on in town. I mean, obviously, there's a whole lot more to that, and it's not that simple. But I'll be more than happy to address it if anyone can come up with a what if. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. Ms. Schick, many of the ideas you shared tonight appear very idealistic. How do you anticipate being able to implement these ideas that always seem to be met with a roadblock?
Oh, that's probably true. I am idealistic. And you're right, that's a fair question. I think a lot of my ideas come from a place where I see where we can go. But the very first step is to work together as a team. So that's really what I can accomplish. That's the very first thing. That all 5 people that are up here, that the other town council members that continue to serve our community, that I am willing and happy to work as a team, that I hope to foster that team commitment. You can't get to any of those bigger, better ideas or implementing any of the comp plan if you're not working together on the same page for the right reasons. And so I am idealistic, that's probably true. But the way to accomplish those is with the whole team. And so being a team player is the first step in that. And then maybe we can get to some of those bigger ideas.
Thank you, Ms. Schick. Okay.